don't know if my podcast wife and podcast husband are coming.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, so we'll get this started. Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Rook, and this is the Mysterious Worlds podcast talk show. As you can see, I'm joined in the studio with Bethan Briggs Miller. Hello, Bethan.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Hello. No problem. Not at all. So let's start at the beginning. What is it you like to do in the paranormal? And how did you get started?
Well, I like to think of myself as the Giles of the paranormal world. I don't go out and do the investigations. I'm more like in the library or behind a book, trying to find out like the history, the folklore of the area, and make connections with what they find out. So yeah, I'm very much behind the scenes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so you like to do a lot of the research side of it. I'm very much like that myself. I used to go out and about and do the paranormal investigations, but I think social media sort of ruined that a little bit. So I've taken a step back and I tend to do some of the research side of it, and especially do like these podcasts or vodcasts or whatever they call them now. I don't know.
Vodcasts.
Vodcasts, I don't know. Yeah,
Dunno.
and just get to talk to people like yourself, really, and find out what you got, how you guys got into the paranormal. So
it's quite nice, the community for the paranormal and folklore. I found there's not really any gatekeeping. I thought there would be like these mythical, like, elders of the paranormal who were like, oh, these young ones coming in. But no, actually, everyone's been like super eager that people want to get involved, which has been really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, isn't it? So what got you started on this paranormal research path?
Well, I have a bit of a show and tell for that. Hang on.
Ooh.
So I think it's a mixture of two things. I grew up in a haunted house, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And then I went to a charity shop when I was would have been about 10 or 11, and it was closing down, and it specialized in books. And in the corner of the charity shop, on its front was a very dusty book, and I just went and happened to pick it up, and it was this, the Folklore of Glamorgan, where I grew up. And they never tell you this bit in school. If you heard about half the horrific, wonderfully gory, macabre things that happen, history would have been the best lesson ever. So I think that's what got me interested in the sort of like the outside bits of history in the area, and it sort of stayed with me. I kept buying more books. I've actually now run out of space for my books. I'm having to constantly buy new bookcases. And then couple that with the house I grew up in, which was a very old cottage in Wales, about 250 years old. And it was in a ironworkers. There was an ironworks nearby, so it would have been the ironworkers' cottage. And it was only 2 up, 2 down. And there'd have been about 11 people living in it at one point. And just the high mortality rate of the area with the mines, the smelting, all sorts going on around us. And then our house had its fair share of ghosts. And there were some that you could definitely see were almost like a time slip, like stone tape theory. Like you were just witnessing like perhaps a little glimpse at the past. But a couple of times you almost interacted with them. Whenever we did anything new to the house, there was a lady in a green dress who used to come and visit, and you always got the sense that she was checking out what you were doing. Because my mum and dad were putting it back to how it was, because the house was gutted in the 50s. It was they pulled down all the old lovely beams and took out the iron fire, took out all the beautiful features. But mum and dad,
blasphemy, that is, isn't it?
Blasphemy. Yeah, I mean, half the street was these lovely stones, and then one house was pebble dashed, which breaks your heart.
It does, doesn't it?
But there was one entity in the house that wasn't very nice, and that was in my room. So I grew up with something that used to hit me, get into bed with me, and I'd leave the room for 2 minutes, come back, and everything would be turned upside down. I would get a strange, like, voice on the phone come on and shout if I was in that room. It was always cold. Like, you know, when you walk into a greenhouse and the air feels, it's like it hits you like that.
Yeah, the atmosphere is really thick.
Thick,
Yeah,
that's it. So imagine a
yeah.
cold version of that.
Okay.
And they had loads of people come out to find out what was wrong with it. It was a small room. It was only about
Mm,
5 by 8. Really tiny little box room. I just had my TV. I was an only child, so I had my bedroom and a little TV room
yeah.
with all my videos. And yeah, it had a huge radiator in there. I could never find out why it was so cold in there. And really, there was a grinning face that used to appear just in the middle of the room and above
Okay.
your head. It would just, you turn around and this grinning face would be there. And I think my parents didn't disbelieve me, but I think there was an element of, oh, she's been watching those scary films again. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Every Saturday night, down Blockbusters.
Yeah,
Blockbusters, remember that? And,
absolutely. Good
you know,
old days.
it was really cool at 15 if you got away with, like, renting out an 18, do you remember? It was like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So they probably thought, "Oh, she's been watching too many of those." But years later, this is after I moved out, so I'm now living down in Essex, and I
yeah,
had a phone call off mum and dad, and it turned out that my mum had just had a knee operation, and when I moved out, they sort of turned that room into, like, a little spare room,
yeah.
and she couldn't sleep in next to dad 'cause he kept moving into her knee, so she said, "Oh, cramped, I'm gonna go and sleep in the spare room because 'cause you're getting on my nerves." So she was in
Okay.
there, and she was reading a book, and she bent over to put the book down
Mhm.
and turned out the light, and as she turned out the light, the room went, like, almost like, 70s horror film, the breath in the air and
Yeah,
the shivering, and she said something crawled up the wall and then crawled across the ceiling, landed on the end of her bed. She felt the weight go down, and
yeah.
it crawled up to her face and said, "Get out!" And she did
Wow.
on a broken leg. And
I think
then
I would.
I think we all would, and it was probably that grinning face thing. It felt old, and it didn't feel like the rest of the things in the house. I don't like how these days it's quite trendy to jump to demon.
Yeah, yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I don't like
It's
that.
it's sensationalism, but I don't know quite
Yeah.
how else to describe it. I think it was more elemental,
Okay.
ancient, like patient, and because I
Yeah.
was a very boring teenager, I wasn't rebellious at all. I think it was probably bored stiff because, you hear about they feed off, like, teenage angst. Well, I was very boring. It's probably like, "Oh god,
Yeah.
she's watching Lord of the Rings for the 60th time." But
I think
they
I've experienced something a bit similar to that. We was at
oh,
Rye Gatehouse, and I can't see or hear spirit or anything like that myself. But in the basement level and the stairs coming up to the main gatehouse level,
yeah.
there was a spirit there. My medium that was with us, a very good friend of mine, and I trust her completely. She said that it wasn't a spirit of a person as you would think a person
Mm.
would be. It's almost like this spirit's been here so long that it's forgotten how to be a human.
Well, that makes sense, yeah.
And it's sort of like a feral human, for want of a
I
better
like
word.
that, a feral spirit. It's sort of lost
Yeah,
its humanity.
yeah, and that sort of had the same effect on that particular area. So
Oh, I like that.
yeah, that does sound familiar.
Well, they asked their local priest to come and bless the house and didn't tell him what had happened because they thought, "God, we're gonna sound absolutely nuts."
Yeah,
So they just said, "Can you just come and bless the house?" And he went around all the rooms, did the usual just blessing, got to that room, and he said, "Oh, you didn't tell me about this room. There's something different in here." And he said, "I need you to go downstairs and stay downstairs." And he was in there for 45 minutes, and it turned into a full exorcism, apparently.
wow.
He was quite
That
ill
that that would
afterwards.
have been yeah, that would have been really impressive to see. I know
Yeah,
they like
I
to do that
know.
stuff in secret though, don't they?
They do. Well, mum and dad didn't tell me about it straight away. When we went up to visit, and I went into that room because there was a little sink in there, and I went to the loo
Mm,
upstairs and went into that room, and I was always a bit nervous about going into that room because there was a mirror on the wall, and I always used to think, "Oh, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it in the mirror."
yeah.
And I was startled. It felt different. It was warm, and it was like it had changed, and I didn't know at this point that they'd had an exorcism. So I
Yeah.
went downstairs and was like, "That's really weird. Have you finally found out why that room is so cold?" And then they said, "Oh, interesting. You should say that."
So
So
whatever it was worked.
whatever it was worked, and we'd
Yeah.
even met like previous owners of the house, and they said, "Oh, how are you getting on with that back room?" So we weren't the only ones.
Yeah. Did they tell you about it before you moved in though?
No.
They probably just
That
want
would have made me
shock.
want to buy it more, though. I'm that type of like, "Oh, wow, it's haunted. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we'll
That's
have
it.
it."
It's just put it down to a bit of character and move in
Yeah.
anyway.
So,
Oh,
yeah, I
dear.
suppose, like, the mixture of that and just the local folklore, I was bound to end up doing something like
Mhm.
this.
Absolutely. Was it obviously you got that book? Was it the folklore of your area where you was?
Yes, yes, it was
Okay.
Glamorgan.
Okay. So
Um,
what's is there any particular favourite folklore that you liked or actually delved deeper into it?
it's gonna sound really, like, quite gory, but I really like death omens,
Okay.
like, especially in Wales. I'm giving a talk actually, hopefully at the next ASAP, conference about how the high mortality rates of areas that have places like mining or, as I said, the, ironworks,
Mhm.
how death being an everyday occurrence changed the folklore of the area. It sort of reflected it, like bit chicken
Yeah.
and egg, what came first? But a lot of folklore that I know about is about looking for signs of death. So and it can come in all different ways. So there's the Cahirite, which is an audible warning, which comes in on the waves, and that's sort of like his impending shipwrecks.
Mhm.
And there's quite a few places that has a smell, like the Morpher Pit colliery disaster had a smell in it in the weeks leading up to the disaster from a death flower.
Okay.
And there's also like these feelings. So it's very centered on the senses in Wales.
Hmm.
And like most places in Britain, actually the world, the old black dog makes an
The black
appearance.
shark. Yeah.
The Shuck, yeah. Now I
Yeah.
live in Essex, so I've gone to Shuckland.
Absolutely. I've been to Bungay. Is it Bungay?
Oh, yeah, I'm
The
hopefully going there
church.
soon.
Yeah, I went there.
Did you see the claw marks in the door?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I see
Yeah, that's
those.
a fab story,
Um,
isn't it?
I think if I remember rightly, they've actually got it inside the church.
Yeah.
So you have to go inside the church now. We had a little look around some churches. We visited a few churches there.
There's some
Um,
great folklore in the churches around here. I mean,
absolutely.
Borley gets all the notoriety in Essex, but I'm probably gonna be this is, like, sacrilegious now. I think it's boring, boring Borley. I don't understand. I know Harry Price got involved, but I don't
Hmm.
understand how it gets the sort of following it does, 'cause there's
I
other
think it's
churches around that have got far more.
yeah. I think there's with Borley, you're not able to go up to the rectory anymore because it is just ruins and
Yeah.
it's on private land.
Mm.
So you're not allowed to go there. It's a small village. The people don't like ghost hunters going up there.
No, they really don't, do they?
No. I was actually lucky enough to work with the villagers and do a couple of tours around
Mm.
Borley. And looking into the place, the actual church isn't the same location as it is now. It was over
No, it's changed, isn't it?
in the next field, I think it was.
Mm.
So I've done a bit of investigation work there. Um, but
Well, if you
we
come
was up.
down this way again, I'll have to take you there's Runwell, where a priest
Yeah.
melted. There's Langenhoe, where, the priest was, embraced by a naked woman and was chased out of the. There's one bit where it says, he felt, the organ and it was warm to the touch, and I had a bit of a giggle about that because some you got I got a
Absolutely.
very childish sense of humor.
There's
But
quite a few. I mean, I came from Basildon, so South Essex,
oh,
not too far away. Um, there's a few churches in Basildon or just
there
outside
is.
Basildon that are quite prolific haunting wise.
We did look at
Um,
one in our monk episode with Eerie Essex.
all
There's a
right,
monk
okay.
that, appears in a field and then will walk across the road, and so many people have been run off the road because they're trying to avoid this monk. And then it'll go to the south side of the church, which makes people think that maybe if it's buried there, there's something a bit amiss, because the south side was saved for unconsecrated burials.
Canewdon is a good location as well.
Canewdon is my favourite place.
I've done tours around that as well.
Have you? Did you go on Halloween? Have you run around it?
I have no. They avoid the people avoid going there at Halloween.
Yeah, the police actually block the roads into it, which makes me want to go even more.
I think one night I went up there, the winds were like 60 miles an hour, and we was meeting people up there to do a tour. And as we approached from the east, I think it was, a tree had blown across the road.
That is quite ominous.
Yeah, we had to stop, get out, grab the tree, push that back as far as we could, so we could carry on going.
We're hoping to go there soon.
Yeah,
we've been invited by the current coven.
Ooh,
I know.
That'd be interesting. Yeah, I've also actually investigated inside the church.
Yeah, anything?
That was we did. Someone sent a picture to me. I was sitting in the bit where the choir boys sat, and there was like a golden cloud sitting next to me.
There's quite a lot of clouds in Canewdon. There was a golden cloud in the field nearby, in the field that's supposed to be, it's called the Witches' Field.
Yeah.
How interesting. It was inside the church. That's interesting.
That one was inside the church, yeah. And I know obviously it's got links to the Cunning Man and his coven.
George Pickinghell, yeah.
That's it, yeah. There's a little village as well, on the banks of the Thames, little fishing village. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called, but there was a witch connected to that little town as well. No,
there's Cunning Morel nearby. There's quite a lot of Cunning.
Chalkwell.
So you're saying Essex and witch, nearly every single village.
Well, yeah. Yeah, they love their witchcraft. We've got a few people in the chat room, so I want to just shout out to Kelly Elliott, Bride Dorber, and Vivian Powell and Jamie Parker. They're all out there.
Hello.
Having a listen. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat room and we'll ask away. So you're looking at Essex a lot then?
Yeah, so I moved down to Essex in 2011. It was a bit of a Gavin and Stacey story. I met an Essex lad and moved down here on a whim, really, because he was moving up to Cardiff, but we couldn't get a job. And then I put in for an art gallery that was opening in Colchester, first sight. Never in a million years thinking I'd get it, and I got it. So I was like, Mum, Dad, I'm moving to Essex.
That's it. Gavin and Stacey was reversed.
Yeah. So and it was there I met Elsa, my podcast wife from Eerie Essex, and we would spend our days, because sometimes it was quite quiet in the gallery, and she was just as interested as I was with folklore, and that's how I got to learn about Essex. I didn't want to know the history. I wanted to know the folklore and the ghost stories and the supernatural stories, and I've sort of got to know the area through that being my interest. And we used to just like nip into each other's gallery and like say, have you heard this? I got this book, and like, sneak each other books. And then it was during lockdown I started listening to Weird Norfolk, which is a podcast about the weird and wonderful in Norfolk. And I thought, oh, this is fabulous. I wish someone did something like this for Essex. And I even said that to them. I messaged them saying, oh, I'm really enjoying this. This is getting me through lockdown. Thanks.
Yeah.
And I said, have you ever, because sometimes they'll do a couple of stories from Suffolk. And I said, have you ever thought about doing Essex? And I told them about my interest. And they said, well, we haven't really got time to do Essex. Why don't you do it? And then I went away thinking, oh, maybe, but because I don't like my voice. So I thought, okay, give it a go. And then I was talking to Elsa and I said, do you fancy doing this with me? And within a month, we had released our first episode, and we've been going now about a year and a bit, and we just released episode 18.
Excellent.
Looking at the devil.
Is there any way that we can listen back to other podcasts that you've done?
Oh, crumbs, yeah, they're all on pretty much every platform, iTunes and Spotify, Amazon. So just type in Eerie Essex and we'll come up.
Excellent. I'm going to have a listen to that. That does sound
I've
good.
I've sort of like stuck. I've recently gone back to my Welsh folklore roots as well. There's a folklorist and storyteller in Wales called Owen Staton. He's got a fabulous voice. He does time between times storytelling on Twitter. So now and again he'll
Okay.
do a live storytelling, and he's got his own podcast where he retells stories, and he's got a very Richard Burton sort of voice.
Yeah.
And we got chatting because he did one particular story that I knew well, and we just got chatting, and he started listening to Eerie Essex. And then I said, "Oh, if ever you need a Welsh voice, female voice for your podcast, let me know." And he said, "Oh, maybe we could do a little one-off." So what has
Yeah.
started as just a one-off, we've now got another podcast called Spectre of the Sea, which is part drama, part folklore storytelling. And the premise is that we are taking a boat around the coast of Wales and discovering all the stories.
Nice.
It's immersive. It's good fun, that one.
Excellent. That sounds good. I'll have to have a listen to that as well.
Yeah, but I've been busy. It's sort of, a lot of this has come from lockdown because I think you had to keep yourself
Absolutely.
busy, didn't you? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I was working all through lockdown, so I didn't have much of a chance to deal with any of that.
So I was quite lucky because I was on mat leave after having
Yeah.
my second child, and then I was working part-time, so I had some working from home. So in between while I was working, I'd be listening to podcasts, and I stop and then do a podcast.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, we done some as well. Got some
Mhm.
podcasts out, and yeah, and the daytimes just work. Just working from home,
Yeah.
but it was all good fun. Yeah. So, have you heard of the Children of Woolpit? The Green
Yes.
Children of Woolpit.
That's a
I've been
fab
there as
story.
well.
Have you been to
I've, I've
Woolpit?
I've been to Woolpit. They've got a nice little museum there. Um, predominantly mainly about their brickwork because there's a big factory there that makes bricks.
Yes, there is,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, they had a little section on the green children.
I think that's one of the
Um,
first folklore stories I heard outside of Wales because do you remember the Reader's Digest did these really cool like one-off, it was like different themes, and they'd be like fairies and caves and dragons, and they were all bound in these lovely sort of
yeah,
covers.
I've got a Reader's Digest book, and it's quite a big, hefty book.
Oh, is it? I
Um,
think I've got it up there. Is it the coveted Folklore of Britain?
I don't think no, I think it was just mysteries of the UK or something, or mysteries of the
Yeah,
world,
that's the other one.
something like
Everyone's looking
that.
for that one.
Yeah, my dad that's how I got into the paranormal. My dad had it, and every time he went to his bookshelf and see that missing, he's like, "Paul, where is it?"
I think a lot of people got into folklore from those Reader's Digest books. I think they were actually
Yeah,
the folklore podcast with Mark Norman recently did a whole thing on it because it was a
yeah,
starting place for a lot of people who were in our sort of circles.
absolutely. Yeah, so I just kept stealing the book and reading it before bed, and every time the
Nice.
book went missing, it was with me. But my dad actually gave it to me quite recently, and he said, "You can have it." And I'm like, "Okay, excellent." So
Mm.
that's where most of my story, like most of my shows, came from.
It's a good
Was like
starting
little bits
point,
out of
isn't
that.
it?
It is absolutely. It's a really good starting point. And yeah, the Green Children of Woolpit were in there. So I thought, while I'm in Essex, let's do a road trip to Woolpit, have a look around. And I've actually come up with a theory of why
Oh,
they about the Green Children of Woolpit.
go on then.
Well, during the period they were found, in the English vocabulary, they didn't have a word for blue.
No, they didn't. No.
No, they called it a shade. It was a shade of green.
Mm.
So I just think that these children were discovered in the woods, cold, and they had the blue tinge when you go cold, and I just think they were blue. Hence, the Green Children of Woolpit.
I think I've heard there's a few theories knocking around about why they were that color. I think one is there's a
Yeah,
lot of Flemish immigrants, and there was a particular thing they were eating that
yeah.
if eating a
I've
lot
heard
of it
that.
could cause the almost like, Sunny D with turning
Yeah.
kids orange. It was a similar effect, and then it just sort of wore off. But
Yeah,
and then
I
St.
just
Martin's Land.
yeah, I just think because they didn't have a word for blue, when the kids appeared and they were really cold and they were blue from the cold, they just said, "Oh, they're green. Look at them."
It's one of those mysteries I'd love to know, but also I I like the mystery. I can't
Yeah.
decide if I want to know or not. It's like if
Yeah.
it was really boring explanation, I'd be like, "Oh."
Yeah, it would be nice to get a time machine and go back to all these things and have a look.
Yeah.
I know another mystery that I liked was the whole Richard III and where the body was laid to rest,
Oh,
and they found him in a car park, underneath a
yeah.
car park. And there's
It was
actually
the
a
first place
movie.
they dug as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. There's a movie coming out quite
Ooh.
soon called The Lost King, and it's about how they discovered the body of Richard III.
Oh, some good stuff coming out. Because one of my
Yep.
favourite folklore tales is Jeff the Talking Mongoose.
Oh yes, I know that one as well.
It's
Yeah.
fab, and they're making a film of it with Simon Pegg, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yeah, I heard that one as well. That plays my co-host on the other network that I work with. Because I think we was at a convention in Essex,
Hmm.
and she heard about this Jeff the talking mongoose, and she's like, "Who would ever investigate a talking mongoose? That is just so ridiculous. Who would investigate it?" And everyone she asked while she was there was like, "Yeah, I'd investigate
Yeah,
it if it come to me. Yeah, if there's a possibility this mongoose is talking, I'm going to be there."
and some of the stuff it came out with, I'd love Jeff to haunt my house. It's
Wouldn't you
brilliant.
just? Yeah,
Yeah.
but she's never lived that down ever since. She said so.
Oh, yeah, you don't disrespect Jeff.
No, no, respect the mongoose.
Respect the mongoose.
No, that's good. You mentioned earlier that um, you do a lot of artwork. Is
Mm.
that paranormal related or just
Yeah,
something different?
it's a bit of both, really. I've got my list here because I forget what I'm up to, so I've got to write it down. Yeah, I do a lot of, I like I like depicting, like, the line between civilization and the wild.
Mhm.
So a lot of woodlands, and I use a lot because I've got EDS, so my hands, I dislocate a lot,
Okay.
everything, but my hands a lot. So that's why you can hear me cracking every now and again. I've got to put myself back together.
Yeah.
And I was finding that a paintbrush was really hurting, and
Right.
it was really making my hands stiff. So I started with alcohol inks, which you can literally just put a lot of alcohol on a page, put the ink on, and then you use the dryer to blow it into
To
different
to
shapes.
play across? Yeah, okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And I love it, and it's allowed me to do, like, really big pieces, and
Yeah.
then I can use bigger brushes to do the trees and everything, and I've had a couple of commissions lately out of it because I think it looks different,
Yeah.
which is why it's captured people, and I've done a painting of black shuck, and I've started doing, illustrations for magazines. There was recently, Haunted magazine?
Yep, yeah, I know Haunted Magazine.
A friend of mine, Nigel Higgins from, Out There Paranormal.
Yep.
He did a really, really good article on, 611 from Uncanny with
Mhm.
Danny Robbins, and he asked me I was really, really chuffed when he asked me, I was really quite touched. He said, "Would
Yeah.
I illustrate it?" And I did, and they had it in the magazine, and then that led on to more things, and I've recently done a front cover for a new magazine in America called High Strange, and that's
Okay,
coming out
yeah, yeah.
soon, and I've done the front cover for that, and the ASAP conference that I went to recently, which
Yep.
was the I you have to remember how to say it now. This is anomalous study for an
I know, I get stuck with that.
it's a mouthful, but there's something about anomalous phenomena of
Yeah.
society in that sort of order,
Yeah,
and
so let's just go with the ASSAP.
ASAP, ASAP. So yeah, I had amazing speakers. They had Peter Laws from Uncanny and UFOs, cryptids, they covered everything. And on the Friday night when we got there, we were quite late and the university is sort of shut down. And I'm full of good ideas, but I regret it the next day. It's like, let's get some whiskey. And it's only 3 a.m. Let's watch The Exorcist. So we were in this kitchen in these student digs with like the Ghost Club and the SPR and all these different people just like chatting away about The Exorcist. And Mike Mason was there from the Cthulhu games. We got chatting, and then someone said, "She's an artist. Show me work." So I did, and then now I've been commissioned for some Cthulhu games. So that's well chuffed with that.
Fantastic.
Rang my mum. Mum.
Do you have your artwork up in like places where people can go and buy them, or
Yeah,
do you sell them
I'm
online?
opening an Etsy shop soon for prints, but I've had a couple of exhibitions. Got one coming up in October, November in Wivenhoe, where I live. It's just like 50 minutes down the track from London, and it's with my husband Jack and our friends Elena and Joss. Joss did the music to Eerie Essex, and we all do similar things, sort of like hidden landscapes and trying, like, not knowing what we're doing when we started, but then finding the landscape. So we're putting on an exhibition, the four of us, so we're quite excited about that.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Do you know where that's going to be yet?
Yeah, it's in the old grocery. So it was, well, it says on the tin, it was the old grocery, and now it's an exhibition space.
Fantastic. Oh, that'd be good. So if there's anyone local, get down there.
If you go on my social media, it's on there because I'm well excited, like posting every time. Look what we're doing.
Fantastic. Are you a member of the ASSAP?
I am, yes.
Yeah. How did you get involved with that?
It was actually through Eerie Essex. I was on one of the many paranormal Facebook groups, just scrolling through, and I noticed this person was talking about something that happened to them in Essex. It was Christian Jensen Roma, who's the chairman of ASAP, and I messaged him saying, "That's a really cool story," and I told him about Eerie Essex, and he actually came on and told us the story on there, which happened in Beauchamp, St. Paul, which is really good. It's a really creepy story, like proper cult sort of stuff going on there. And then he said, "Oh, come along to see, we got a lecture on this Thursday." I mean, it's £5 a year for a lecture every week, and really, really good lectures. And then, so they started, because I'm sort of like obviously based in Essex, a couple of things have come my way. And because he knows I like Welsh folklore, recently I don't know how else to put it, but it sounds so big-headed. I was one of the experts on Help My House is Haunted on Sky Discovery through ASAP. They sort of sent me up there to go and talk about Welsh folklore, and they're coming down to Essex soon. So it's opened a lot of doors. It's really good to be involved with them.
Yeah. Okay. So if anyone does want to get involved with the ASSAP, do you know how they go about that?
Just literally Google them, when the website will come up, ASAP, and there's the how to join. I think it's £20 a year if you want like a proper magazine that comes out every 3 months, which is what I've gone for. But if you just want the digital copy and just want to come along to the lectures, it's £5 a year, and they're really good lectures, really good.
Yeah, I must admit, I've seen a few of the lectures come up, both on social media and in my email, but I've never actually gone to one yet.
They're good. And another one, I volunteer as well for the Folklore Library and Archive with Mark Norman, who does the Folklore podcast. And there's always conferences on there as well, which is all, again, it's one of these things that we're not paid to do it. So any support anyone can give, and they're not expensive. I think there's a conference coming up soon, or an event, and it's like £5 or £3. And like a whole weekend conference is 15, and you've got about 12 different speakers. So there's a lot going on. I think lockdown has meant that, I mean, these conferences I couldn't have got to easily if they'd have been in person. So I'm quite grateful that a lot of them are still online.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the way forward for a lot of, organisations like that.
Or like hybrid, because it was nice going to the one in Bath for ASAP, because you get to meet the people and you get to network and stuff. But it's not always possible. There's so many on.
Yeah.
That it's nice to be able to just think, oh well, I'll go to that one, but I'll log into that one and mix
Mhm.
and match. So I think if they can like put both on, like I think Conway Hall do it a lot. You can either go in person or you can pay a
Yeah.
smaller fee and just log into their live feed.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, it is nice. I mean, I've got a friend that does the paranormal, was it Paracon?
Mm.
Um, and it's to do with the Haunted Antiques Paranormal Research Centre
Oh
in
yeah,
Hinckley.
I want to go
And
there.
oh, yeah, it's an amazing place. I really recommend it.
I was really,
Um,
I was a bit concerned. I think they put on, they were trying to summon demons on
I
YouTube.
yeah, they try all sorts. I think it's just as an entertainment thing. I think to
Yeah.
get
But it did
people
sound like the
into
beginning of
it.
a B horror, a horror movie, a B movie. I was like,
Absolutely, it did, didn't it? I mean, I went to some of their seances when they first
mm.
started them, and we really didn't get too much activity through them either, to be fair.
But did you have
Um,
fun?
but yeah, it was entertaining. It was a good night out, nice and cheap as well. And I think they're trying to do like ghost hunts really dirt cheap for the members of public as well, especially at the
Mm.
moment with the finances the way it's going at the moment. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so they're trying to keep it as cheap as possible to pull in the crowds. But I've been there quite a few times as just an investigator, and there is some weird stuff going on up there.
I can imagine.
It is. I mean, they don't claim that anything's haunted. So they've got loads of objects that you can just go and work with. And there's a lot of mediums that go up there and say, "Yeah, I'm drawn to this particular statue or box, or whatever it is he happens to have up there." And then they get to work with it, and you can pick things up, pick objects up, move them about, investigate, and work with those individual objects.
I think, have you heard of, Icy Sedgwick, who does Fabulous Folklore podcast?
Yeah,
She had a good idea. I think she said it just as a joke, but I was like, do you know what? I'd watch that. Imagine like Cash in the Attic, but haunted
yeah,
objects, like going to
yeah.
people's houses and having a look. Like, oh, that's a great idea. Someone needs to do that.
Yeah, I remember Zaffis, John Zaffis,
Oh, that
when
sounds familiar.
he done a TV show, The Haunted Collector, I think he called
Oh
himself.
yes.
Um, it just amused me that everywhere he went, it was like, oh yeah, this 18th century gun is haunted. I better take that away with me. It was never something modern that cost about 5p down the market.
Oh no.
It was always something that was quite valuable.
Oh right, yeah, I can see what you
Yeah, it's like, really?
really.
Yeah,
Mm.
I can imagine a modern update version of that. It'd be like, "Oh, your 42-inch TV's haunted. I better take that with me,
Yeah,
as well as your
your
PlayStation
PS5 has
5."
got
Yeah,
something going on there.
exactly. Um, which, yeah, it's just entertainment, isn't it, though, that I think.
I think that's why
You just
podcasts have become so popular as well. I mean, lockdown was quite lonely,
yeah,
and it was nice to have, I think we were all used to and didn't realize how we were used to voices, like having a chat in the background. That's
yeah,
what started me listening to them. I listened to Lawmen because they're hilarious, and um, that's how I started listening to Uncanny with Danny, and that's got a
yeah,
really lovely community. It was just started with a few of us, like, nerds, like,
mm,
talking online with a little on Twitter, and then we've now got our own little WhatsApp group, and, like, every few weeks we have a Zoom call, and it just started out with a few of us, and
yeah,
now we've got amazing people coming on to talk to us, like, Deborah Hyde and Dallas Bader and, the Appalachian Folklore podcast with Aaron Bobeck, and
mm.
it's really taken off. It's become its own little thing now, and it's I never would have thought that social media would be so good for the paranormal community, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it can be good. It really
Well, that's
can
how we
be,
got
but
chatting through it.
exactly, that's how it works. Um, but I do think there are some paranormal groups out there that have a lot of what's the word? Trying to put it nicely. Armchair warriors.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I think they've ruined it for a lot of people.
There are some quite venomous ones too, like, now and again, you'll see someone posting, like, a screenshot of, like, an argument they've had, and it's like, "Whoa, that was
Yeah,
quite intense."
exactly. And it has got it's got nothing to do with anyone on that chat, but people still feel the need to share it, and it's like, really, I don't go in for that. Just avoid it like the plague.
Mm,
Yeah, but no, that's sort of why I got into podcasting, because I've got a lot of experience myself in investigations.
mm.
I've got a lot of knowledge, and I'm quite happy sharing that and talking to different people, and growing that knowledge, sharing, and and
Have you
if
ever been on an investigation and then felt like you've brought something back with you? That's always fascinated me because obviously I'm behind the scenes, so I don't go out. I've been on my
I
first
yeah,
investigation on Saturday. That's how
um,
newbie I am at it.
I have, yeah, I've seen like corner of the eye phenomenon occasionally
Mm,
when I've been in the flat on my own, like flickers of light, but that normally tends to go away after a couple of days. As I said, because I don't normally see or hear spirit,
mm,
anything coming back would just be ignored.
yeah.
So they get bored and
They get
go away.
bored.
But it's happened to one of my co-hosts, my co-workers in the team. Um, she claims that she's had someone behind her in the. She drives, so she says that someone's been sitting behind her, kicking the back of her seat as she's been
Mm,
driving. Um, she's she was saying that because she lives in a caravan, my friend,
mhm,
and she said that she was sitting there one night, and all of a sudden, the table jumped in the front room, just literally jumped like someone had kicked it from underneath. Um, so she done her mediumship bit, and she come up with a name, a shortened down name, something like Ben, or
mm,
something similar to that. And we actually done an investigation that week at Shrewsbury Prison, I think it was.
right,
Um, so I went down the list of all the people that had been executed at Shrewsbury, and his name was on it.
right.
So we done a little bit of research on that particular person, and we found out there's actually a book written about him. So
Oh,
she got the book and learned about him, and sort of conversed with him, and he happily went back to Shrewsbury, I should imagine. It was just like,
fascinating.
I'm here, sort of thing, and I assume that because she was sensitive to spirit,
Mm,
he sort of latched onto her. So I've not personally had anything like that. It's always been like corner of the eye that I'd be like, yeah, I don't buy into that really. I'm quite skeptical when it comes to spirits, unless
it's
unless
quite
it's like,
healthy to be a bit skeptical.
yeah, I mean,
Mm,
like, unless I turn the corner and I see a ghost like in Ghostbusters, in the library. If I
mhm.
see that, then I'm gonna believe.
Yeah. Mind you, there'd still
Yeah.
be some if they saw that, they'd be like, "Oh, no, 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 no."
Yeah, no, I think I'd be relatively convinced by that. I don't think I'd need to go get her.
We've, Elsa and I have actually found that me more than Elsa, maybe because I'm a bit more of a believer, whereas she's a bit more of a skeptic.
Mm,
We've had I call them more synchronicities, like coincidences that have
yeah.
happened that seem to, happen along the theme that we've done. So each episode is a theme, so we don't take a particular place. We'll do sort of like Poltergeist one episode, UFOs the next, fairies the next. We sort of
Yeah.
attack it by theme. And we've noticed that every time we've done something, I'll have a weird experience that is to do with it.
Mm,
Not intentionally, I'm not looking out for it. So we did our episode on UFOs, and it was just before the episode came out. So it's always in the build up as we're doing the
right,
research.
yeah.
And perhaps, perhaps you're just more open to looking out for things. But
Yeah.
we always joke that my house is like the British Skinwalker Ranch because there's always something going on here, like on a flight path for UFOs and things.
Yeah.
And I find it very hard to describe the UFO I saw. So if anyone's interested, I did a puppet show of it. That's on
Okay.
Instagram under Eerie Essex. And what really got me was I've seen 2 over this house, and they were so blatant. It was just like, you're not even trying to hide whoever you are up
Yeah.
there. Like, what are you doing? I even got in contact with the MOD and said, "Look, I'm not saying it's aliens. You might be testing something out, but you need to know you can see it.
Yeah.
You either need to fly a bit higher or rethink." Because this big copper disc came over my house, and it was just like I couldn't believe no one was around. It was like, did it? What, seriously?
Yeah. I
But
think
that
a
was
lot of
in
people are like that when they see something they can't explain, especially in the skies. And they're like,
yeah.
"Did we actually see that? Oh, it was just a plane or something," and just dismiss it.
Well, I couldn't even. I mean, I was trying to think, because we did a lot of. We've only done one UFO episode, but we're going to be revisiting it so many times because I went into the archives, where they've released all the MOD files, and I thought, I'll
Yeah.
just pick a few Essex ones out. I got through 1963, and I haven't even touched the rest of it. I got 1 month out, and that was enough for an episode.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to keep coming back. Oh, and it was brilliant. One of the files I found was an argument between someone and an official in the MOD, and it ended with them saying, "Right, this is your last chance to find out what I've discovered. Meet me," and it was in this pub in London. I'll be wearing a red rose, and I'll have a black trilby on. This is in 1940,
Yeah.
and I just want to know, did they go? Did the guy go? Did the MOD
Yeah.
meet up with him? There's some really funny stories in there.
I bet there is. I'm gonna have to go and have a look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you looked into Rendlesham Forest? The
I
Rendlesham
haven't,
Forest
no, because
Institute?
that's Suffolk, and there's enough in Essex keeping us busy. Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I do want to look at Rendlesham is interesting, and, there was a really interesting talk at the ASAP conference, by
Hmm.
Christian Lander about a UFO incident and, the Thunderbolt incident, and that was really interesting, but the one that's always got me was that one in Wales on the
Mm.
coast.
Okay.
What was it called? I was just talking about it an hour ago with someone. It was the one where it was about 50 school children saw it, and the head teacher had the sense to say,
Is that where it landed?
"Yeah,
It landed in a school, not schoolyard, but the field after
yep."
next to it.
It was like a cigar shape, and all the
Yeah.
children, he got them all inside and made them draw what they saw. So probably like
Yeah.
the best recorded, eyewitness account.
Hmm.
And loads of people in the village had strange people turning up at their door, both sort of like your typical Men in Black, and
Yeah.
then like silver people dressed in silver.
They were the mad ones with the tinfoil hats.
Yeah, damn it! What is the name of that
I know the
incident?
case you're talking about, but I can't remember myself.
I'm gonna have to Google it. That's gonna drive
Yeah.
me absolutely. Is there anybody knows who's listening? Can you put it in the chat? 'Cause see if you can beat me to it. Let's beat Google.
Yeah, go for it. But no, I went to Rendlesham with a couple of friends, and at the time I had a slip disc, so I was like on crutches,
Oh,
and
bless you.
we went the wrong way, and we ended up on a road that went literally all the way around the outside of
Yeah.
Rendlesham. It took like 3 hours to find our way back to the car. And we got halfway round, and my mate's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Well, it doesn't matter if I'm okay because I've still got halfway to go."
Yeah, the Rendlesham is really interesting.
It is.
Um,
It's definitely an eerie place, and the vibes from that area, it's really strange. But when I got to the car park, I sat in the car while the others went off to find
mm,
the UFO statue thing. And this car pulled up next to us, so I locked the car door because it was
mm.
no one around. So I locked the car's doors and rang my mate up and started talking to them. I said, "If I go missing, this is why I am last." But when
I
the
know a
others
couple of
come,
people who've had that happen around there, like
well,
a
yeah,
strange car pull up.
when the others come back, they actually got talking to this guy, and he was supposed to be meeting a reporter there that didn't
Oh,
show
right.
up. And apparently, it turns out he was an ex-worker at the military base there, and he had a really strange experience with a cryptoid in the forest.
Ooh.
And he described it like almost like a monkey type thing, and it was like a little chimpanzee type height, and it would play around all the cars in the car park, and
Oh,
he'd
there's
see
something
this thing.
similar in Essex, like a monkey
Y-
sort of thing.
Yeah,
Mm.
and that's what he was there to talk to this reporter about, but they didn't show up. So we was like, okay, so what's your name? We'd love to have you on the podcast. And he's like, oh, my name's, I can't remember now, whatever. Um, and we took his details to get in contact with him, and ever since then he's just disappeared. No one knows where he is.
Oh
No
my
one's seen
god.
him. We've not heard from him. Yeah, totally really weird that. Yeah.
Because
So
I
maybe
mean,
the Men in Black got
that's
him.
that's like one of the most interesting things around these cases. Oh, it's Broadhaven, by the way, the one in Wales.
Oh, okay, yep.
Because there's Todd Madden, in
Hmm.
Yorkshire, and the amount of intrigue around that. Yeah, the actual event itself, yeah, that was pretty cool. It was a really interesting story, but it's the amount of involvement with the government and, like, people
Yeah,
turning up, the Russians as well, that makes you is that's the most and it started with a murder. There was a body found on top of a coal pit, and no one could
okay.
figure out how it got up there perfectly, and it was covered in
Mm,
this slime. And then there was the UFO, and, like, these cows went missing, and then they turned up. It was like a very it was an interesting UFO, but it was everything that happened around it that was
yeah.
creepy, because people disappeared and, like, would turn up and threaten people. It was ooh.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a case like that in the US. It's the missing 411. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Yes,
Paul,
actually,
is it
Astonishing Legends, the podcast,
Paul
the
Podardis?
literally polite yeah, Politis, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the documentary that they done on it,
Mm.
and some of the things in that was so weird. I mean, like this little um, toddler went missing, and he was found like 300 kilometers away.
Yeah, he said he
Um,
was being taken care of k t took care of by a bear. Now, if it
yeah.
was anything like a cryptid, they wouldn't have the language, and I think Politis said that, um, it might describe something like Bigfoot as a
Mm.
bear.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it crosses over so many different boundaries. You know, is it? I mean, are these people just generally going missing because they don't want to be found and having accidents, or are they um, are they being abducted by aliens, or being taken away by Bigfoot, or
But, like, the
there's
woods in
so many
America
different things.
are they scare me, the thought of it,
Oh
because
yeah,
the sheer size of them
yeah. I mean, there
is
was
really
even
hard to
in
think.
this documentary, there was one hunter that she said she was up in the tree,
Mm.
and apparently across town there was a report of a UFO sighting, and then about an hour later she witnessed what she called like a blur in the forest, and it was like a creature running through the forest or swinging through the trees, but it was completely cloaked, and you get that a bit like the predator,
Yeah.
she got to see that. Um, so there's lots of weird and wacky theories out there for that.
I do
Um,
like the connection, like, between UFOs and fairies.
yeah.
I really find that interesting because, I mean, I didn't realize the sheer scale of fae encounters. And
Mm,
if you look at, the Fairy Census with
yeah.
the fairy sightings folk, and, like, Joe Hickey Hall does an amazing podcast called the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast.
Hmm.
It's more than UFOs, but I don't think a lot of people like to talk about it because I think of
I,
all the, like, supernatural and paranormal things, there's
yeah.
still something. If you said you saw a fairy,
Mm.
people wouldn't take you as seriously as if you said a UFO or a ghost.
No, I think some of the paranormal stuff uh, account for some fairy saints. I mean, elementals. I
Mm.
mean, okay, they're spirit, but I personally class them as fairy
Mm.
or
Yeah, I
fae
would too, yeah.
because because the elements are like earth, wind, and fire, and that's all attributed to fairies, fairy
Yeah.
folk. So I've investigated a couple of places, Kelvin and Hatch nuclear bunker for one,
Yes.
and I do believe that the spirit in there, in the Medical Bay area,
Mm.
is an elemental.
I've heard that said before. Yeah, there's something
Yeah.
ancient. There's something not. It's not a ghost. There's something a bit more.
No, I mean I've had mediums going with me, and they've said, this spirit thing isn't good, but it's not bad either. It just is.
Yeah, it just is.
Yeah. And every time I've been in there, it's very much inquisitive. It doesn't
Mm.
interact too much with you, but it lets you know it's there. Um, Not in a good way or a bad way. It just lets you know it's there.
Mm.
Um, and I have caught on camera, or well, one of our team caught it on an older analog camera, a face in the medical screen, and it looks quite oriental, to be fair. But as the camera panned round, it jumped back. So
Right.
whatever it was almost like, oh no, they've seen us, and dropped back.
Mm.
But you could definitely see the eye and the eyebrow, and like nose as well.
If
That
I
was
tell you
strange.
an encounter I had with a fae, promise not to laugh.
No, go on. I might laugh.
Uh, no, I know, but you will. If I'm gonna laugh telling it because it sounds
Okay.
so ridiculous.
No, go for it.
Um, I was I was cooking in the kitchen, and our kitchen, the cooker's, like, in front of you, and then on your right, there's the door to the garden, and I often
Mm,
have it open because it gets hot, and,
yeah,
there's a really nice view down across the village, and right outside the door, I've got, like, a little herb garden,
yeah,
because it's easy just, take your hand out, get the herbs,
yeah,
put
yeah.
it straight in the pot, and I was cooking one night, and I was sort of like I was in a world of my own, and I started hearing this, like, scuffling noise.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, what's that? Is it a cat?" And then I started hearing this, like, grumbling, like,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Okay, maybe a hedgehog because they make those noises, don't they?"
Yeah.
And I went outside, I popped my head around this corner, and there was this thing, bold as you like, stood there, and it looked at me and ran off, swearing, under its breath, and it had a hat it was like a hat on, and it was the shape of a potato.
Okay.
Like, imagine if there was a Mr. Potato Head in your garden and it ran off and, it didn't have 4 feet. There's a certain gait to a two-legged creature, isn't there? And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
ran off down the garden, and I was just stood there, again, like when I saw the UFO, like, that looked like a gnome.
Yeah,
And then ever since I saw it, 'cause it sounded pissed off that I saw it. I mean, it was,
yeah.
like, proper angry that I saw it. I'm sure I heard it go, "For fuck's sake."
Oh, excellent.
And ever since then, I had the worst luck. I started having stones apport and throw land on my head in the middle of like, sat on the sofa watching telly, a stone would hit my head, or,
Okay.
like, some sweets that weren't anywhere near, like, things that I knew were in the house but weren't anywhere near would
Yeah.
suddenly, like, land on my head,
Hmm.
and things went missing, not just the usual, like, "Oh, I put them somewhere." Things went totally missing, and everyone laughs at me. It was my husband's birthday, and we had a barbecue, and I took the Tesco delivery order in the morning. I know for a fact there were bloody potatoes in this order. There was,
Yeah.
like, 2 bags of potatoes, so I was gonna make a potato salad, and when it came to cooking them, I couldn't find them anywhere. Couldn't find them. I even looked because sometimes, you put things in daft places. I even checked
Yeah.
the daft places. They had gone, and everybody was, like, saying, "What have you done with them, Beth?" And I was like, "It's the bloody gnome, I swear, it's
Yeah.
dogging my steps."
It's taking them
And
back to the end of the garden.
maybe.
Yeah.
And it disappeared recently. We have, someone come in to help in the garden, because it sounds posh to say we have a gardener. He
Yeah.
comes now and again to, like, help us, like, clear stuff up.
Yeah.
And I asked him to, because we had some brambles and nettles, by the front, and I said, "Oh, could you clear all that out?" And he went for it, bless him. He is such a hard worker. But I forgot to say, don't pull up that hawthorn because I'm quite
Yeah.
suspicious about things like that. And I was actually asking Icy and Joe, and I think Morgan Daimler, like, What I need to move this hawthorn. It's going to grow in a place, and I need access because now and again I might have to use a wheelchair because of my condition, and I've got the pram.
Yeah.
And they were giving me all this advice on like how to placate potential fae. And I came back from work and he'd ripped it up, and I was like, "Oh my god, the thing's already pissed off at me. It's
Yeah.
gonna have a field day
The
now."
worst
But it
now.
went. It
Okay.
sort of, but it followed me to work.
Ooh.
Or it was something different in work. Whatever was in work was a bit nasty actually, 'cause it's I was sat at the front desk and my coffee cup started moving across the desk, and the guy sitting next to me is a total skeptic, and when he watched it, and I could see his face like, I just watched my coffee cup move from one end of the desk to the other, and he was like, "Oh, they must be drilling somewhere nearby." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever you need to make yourself feel better about this with their drilling."
Yeah, the coffee cup was wet underneath and it's created the air bubble. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah, that was
yeah.
that, and it wasn't, 'cause I checked. I was really like, "Ooh, I wonder what's causing this." And then we
Yeah.
had things like apples in the middle of the room and on the floor from another room, like someone came in saying, because I heard these keys drop on the floor, and we went and had a look, and I was like, "Well, there are just some keys in the middle of the floor." And as I bent
Wow.
down and picked them up, I said, "Who are these? Whose keys are these?" And someone came running in saying, "I've lost my keys. I just had them, and they'd appeared in the middle of our room." And then I went to
Wow.
put some keys away because what my job is, I always describe it as Hagrid because we're keepers of keys and grounds at this
Well,
uni.
right. Yep.
And I was putting them away, like these keys in a wooden cupboard. There's nothing in there apart from hooks with keys on. Put my hand in, and I felt this sharp pain go straight in my finger. Pulled my finger out,
Yeah.
and I was covered in blood. And there was a sharp shard of metal, like dagger shaped,
Ouch.
stuck in my middle finger. And I think everyone was a bit like creeped out with me that day because they were like, "She's jinxed." And so I had to go to
Yeah.
the security office, and they had to try and pull this shard of metal out my finger.
The
And then we
fairies
couldn't
are
find
after
where it
you.
came from.
Yeah. The fairies have got it in for you.
They've left me alone recently, so let's hope
Good.
that was it.
Yeah, maybe they moved on to someone else.
Yeah, yeah, as I said, I'm quite boring. They're probably like,
No, far from it. But unfortunately, we have come to the end of the show. It's only an hour long, this show.
"No,
I know. So we'll have to have you back. Learn some more about these fairy folk.
well, I've got a list." So
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, I'll book you in after the show. We'll get you on again. crack on. Yeah.
Thank you for having
So
me on. It's been lovely chatting to you.
yeah, it's been really good chatting to you as well. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, I'll after the show we'll just discuss maybe another date before Christmas, and we can get you in again.
That'll be nice.
That'd be fantastic. So thank you for joining me. Thank you everyone in the chat room, and I shall see you all again next week. Bye bye, everybody.